Thank you. I'm Reverend Lofton Woods. I'm from Yonkers, New York, Westchester County, one of the richest, but with the poorest track record for families. I'm raising 2 grandchildren, 16 and 18. I've had them for 18 years. Their mother's incarcerated. Had 6 living grandchildren, 1 deceased. They were all born exposed. One of the worst things that our hospitals do to the newborn babies is, my last grandson is 2 years old. For 1 month, he was on morphine because my daughter was tested because she was taking an opiate because she had had 5 discs replaced in her neck. During pregnancy, she needed to take some medication. So the baby remained in the hospital on morphine. So where were his rights? All right? What kind of, who's going to be held accountable for that form of exposure? All right? The reform needs to be on the CPS system in New York State and on ACS. I've adopted my granddaughter out of foster care. And mind you, there are as many babies, any children in foster care as it is people of color in the penal system. Do the math. Is this not another form of enslavement? Now, my main question to the panel is, what about us? We're the grandmothers. We're the family members. That we're caught up in the system. We're doing time with our children that are incarcerated. We are caught up in the system with CPS. We are subjected to the wiles of their devilment. We have no rights. We have no rights. Who speaks for us?
Let's take a bunch of questions and then people can just go down and answer the ones that they want. And we'll start with you, Ms. Adams.
Hi, I am a NICU and postpartum nurse in Seattle, and after years and years of complaining, my clinical nurse educator asked me to rewrite our maternal drug use and neonatal abstinence policies. I'm a little overwhelmed by the responsibility of that task, and so I would love any of your input. My main question is, do you know of any hospital in the United States that has an evidence-based, compassionate policy regarding maternal drug use that I can use as a template?
We'll answer that.
I just have...
Hi.
David.
How are you? Hey, quick information question. I'm from one of the several states that's introducing legislation that's similar to Washington and Colorado. And reviewing that gets introduced in my state in January.
Say who you are.
Rhode Island.
No, who are you?
Who am I? David Lewis, that's my name. And I'd like to put into that statute, I'd like to suggest for that statute really good language that pays attention to the issues you've been talking about really well on this panel. So I want to know where I can get it and where I can get it fast.
Hi, my name is Lydia. I'm a community organizer with the San Francisco Drug Users Union. My daughter was removed from my care at birth because, among other small issues, I had to do a drug test during my pregnancy. But I was already clean, and she tested clean, and we were already doing all of the things, or trying to get services, doing all of the things that they wanted us to do. But my family was completely torn apart by that. And I hear that you're doing things for people who are using, opiate substitution and doing things for people who are testing dirty for marijuana. But what about people who are having issues with other substances, who may be self-medicating or...
Yeah. We got it. Next question. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Lindsay. I'm from Toronto, Canada. Just have a quick question. Thank you so much for all your amazing contributions to this conversation. I've worked with lots of women who use drugs for their pregnancy and while parenting and not their children after they've been taken away. Many of the women I work with who are experiencing what we call our child welfare system, what I call legal drugging of them. So they're not allowed to use the substances that they choose to use in terms of self-medicating, but they're forced to use certain psychiatric medications that have been suggested that they use after these parenting capacity assessments. It's a really large form of abuse that I think the women are experiencing. I'm just wondering about your experiences around
that. My name is Diane Kornbacher. I'm the board of National Normal and the Women's Alliance. I also have a magazine called Lady Vibe. I've always been an advocate and done court support and given a voice to people who have had dealings with CPS. Last year, CPS came to our house because my son tried to educate his school on Earth Day about hemp. So when they asked him what hemp was, because we've kept our society largely ignorant of the benefits of hemp, he said it was like marijuana, but you can't get high. So for the first time in my advocacy career in almost 20 years, I actually had direct experience with CPS. My question to you is, how do you decompress after dealing with all of these calls? Because we constantly are inundated at the Women's Alliance with phone calls from women who have had their children removed in less than an hour. We can't even hear what they're saying because they're shrieking and they're sobbing. And we have PTSD from this sort of activity. We don't have the help or the funding to help them. They're begging us for help, and we can't help them. We don't have funding for it, and it's not just our organization. We really need to focus on this because I'm so tired, and I'm so scared for all these families. Every time I go travel to any of these conferences, I have to be prepared not to see my sons for 18 months. That's the national average for getting your kids back if you ever see them again. Yes. How do you decompress and how do you get more help? We need the money, we need the help. I can keep traveling to these things, fighting for the rights of other people when I know that my kids can get taken. I have my lawyer babysitting my children while I'm gone. But I have help, and a pro bono lawyer, not everyone that calls us has that, and I bleed for them. So thank you for your help, but how do you decompress and how do we get more help for them?
Well, I'm a little reluctant to come after that, but I'll give it a go. My name is John Delaney. I'm a child protection court judge from the state of Texas. And before you react to Texas, I will tell you that I'm here wearing my leaf garb. And this is my second drug reform conference. I sat and listened to you all recount the horrors of the child welfare system, and I wanted to say a word for the farmer, the line from Oklahoma. We don't remove children and keep children away from their parents simply because they've tested positive for drugs, simply because they continue to test positive for drugs, simply because they don't show up for the drug treatment classes. It has to be something more. And I just want to let you know that there is at least one human being on the bench in this country, and I'm sure there are hundreds more, who are very sensitive to the broader picture. It's not just about drugs, it's about how well you happen to be parenting that child. And the state of New Jersey, I think earlier this year, the Supreme Court ruled that you can't take a child away from his parents simply because the parent tests positive for it.
It happens every day, every single day, all over this country.
Well, you did well. And I quote that case in my child protection court. When a worker says, got drugs, I say, well, tell me about the parenting. So I'm going to sit down now, but I would love to be able to bring some training about this issue to our judicial conferences there in Texas.
Yes.
We do tons and tons of those in the child welfare system.
I just have to say one thing about the fact that we don't remove kids from their family because testing positive for drugs. I don't know what excuse they give, but that's not true. When somebody tests positive for drugs, we search for other things, and we use those things like they came to the door and they didn't want to let us in. They were hiding stuff. Or we saw a bruise on the child's leg. I don't know what excuse they use, but they're removing the kids really because of the drugs. When I'm brought in, I'm brought in to talk about the drugs. And that's the major reason that they're removing the kids, even though they may be saying something different.
Okay, we have to stop the questions. We have 5 minutes to give the panelists a chance to respond to the questions. We are happy to stay and talk to the people who didn't get to ask their questions. I will say that the New Jersey case was a case in which a woman tested positive for cocaine. We represent the question, no matter what the drug is in the child welfare system, is can you parent, not what drug did you use. And we did get the New Jersey Supreme Court to say a positive tox is not the same as evidence of harm, and yet we are back in there where they say being in methadone treatment is evidence of harm.
Just one good thing about New Jersey is those children were also, that child was also removed. It took over a year. So to say that they're not removed, I mean, ultimately it may be finally decided by a judge that that removal was unlawful, but it's happening. And the problem is it's happening in a community where the ties from those children to their parents is completely undervalued. So people think it's not a big deal. Like, we'll get it right in a year after the trial, but the damage is done. The family's been destroyed.
Sarah, sorry.
I'm going to try to answer a couple of those questions really fast. The woman who asked about the grandparents, some states do have laws which give grandparents some rights. Check your state laws. Some, unfortunately, other ones, if you're a medical marijuana patient and you're a grandparent, well, if your grandkid, is taken away for a valid reason, you're going to have trouble, and you might not get custody, despite being grandparent, being a good grandparent. The woman who asked about the evidence-based hospital stuff, and I want to speak to that as well, but that's hard. That's really hard to find. The midwives are probably your best bet to talk to, especially home birth midwives. They're more open. They're less likely to do things. I also wanted to speak to Diane's question, because you're right, it's really hard. It's really, really hard to not end up feeling, it's traumatic to go through a child protective service investigation. I actually have PTSD. I fight my trauma by helping others. But you do have to put it in a box at some point, and you have to spend time with your own kids, and remember that we are blessed because we're here. And yes, it's horrible that the other parents aren't blessed like we are, but we can't save everybody. We can't fix it for everybody, and we just need to do what we can, love ourselves, love our kids, don't forget to self-care and all this, because otherwise you'll burn out, and we need you. So I also wanted to say to the judge that we need you, sir. We really do. I know from your experience that it's not only solely drugs, not only solely marijuana, but it happens. It happens in Texas. There's a case right now, Alex Teel, a beautiful 2-year-old girl. Her parents were smoking pot in their bedroom while she was asleep. She's dead now. She was killed by her foster parents who were fostering as an income. She was hungry and thirsty one night, and she tried to get food, and her foster mother got angry and hit her head into the ground until she was in a coma, and then she was dead. So it does happen just for marijuana. We need more family court judges who don't want that to be the case.
I wanted to speak to the gentleman who is writing a draft of legislation. I would be very glad to model some language to put in bills that are going into state ballot initiatives.
She's a lawyer, I'll help, but she's a lawyer, let her do it.
And as for the compassionate care question about whether there's any program, do I know of any program in the U.S.? Not exactly. The best that I have seen is a program that is specifically for women who use drugs, and as long as they are under the care of the program has an agreement with CPS not to report. However, as soon as they're not compliant, that agreement goes away, and so it's far from ideal.
What's it called?
This is called the CCAP program at St. Elizabeth's Hospital in Boston.
And I'll have more information for you. I just want to thank the panel. I want to thank all of you, and I want to say also in terms of how you deal with it. I hope you'll talk to Emma, the PTSD, but my thought is,
I'm walking PTSD.
even if every lawyer were good and a decent human being and volunteered to help with child welfare cases, there would not be enough of them. So the kind of work that Sara and Jess are doing in terms of empowering people, we have to think about direct action. Somebody mentioned that there's a direct action day at CPS, I think November 11th or 12th. I'm not, what is it?
It's Moms for Marijuana is on November 12th, direct action.
November 12th. But we can, we hope to do an action that will be modeled around the country in which particularly white parents show up outside of ACS or outside of a family court with our urine cups and lots of empty ones and stand there and say, you cannot judge us by what is in our urine, by evidence of our drug use. And sit in and stand up because there aren't enough lawyers for the people who are calling you. So we're going to have to turn to some other kind of movement-building action that says it's not just about the criminal justice system, it's also about our families and the child welfare system. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for coming.